If you look at Michael, the body work he's done over the years, it's kind of sad though, Stephen. I think you know that.
Dennis Rodman is revealing shocking truths about Michael Jordan, from the mistreatment he says he endured to the shady dealings Jordan kept hidden. Rodman insists there is far more to the player's story than the public knows. Let's break it down. The shocking truth about Michael Jordan. The Bulls' three-peat from 96 to 98 made it look like Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman were in perfect sync. On the court, the chemistry seemed effortless. Off the court, though, Rodman has never stopped reminding people that Jordan wasn't the saint his image suggested. Across interviews and stories told over the years, he's chipped away at the myth of their partnership, painting Jordan as a ruthless basketball genius whose methods and personality were far darker than the polished brand everyone bought into. Perhaps the most stunning revelation that Dennis Rodman has repeatedly shared is just how emotionally barren their supposedly legendary partnership truly was. Rodman has consistently emphasized that he and Jordan never had a conversation in 3 years in Chicago outside of basketball-related discussions. The depth of their emotional isolation becomes even more shocking when Rodman describes their social interactions. Even when they found themselves at the same restaurant, Rodman and Jordan would sit at separate tables, maintaining their professional distance even in casual settings. But what makes Rodman's revelations even more disturbing is his insight into Jordan's true motivations. According to Rodman, Jordan's tolerance for his eccentric behavior wasn't based on friendship or understanding. It was purely transactional. Jordan famously said this in an interview: "Rodman's dresses don't bother me. His hair doesn't bother me. You can't find another player who works just as hard." This wasn't acceptance or support. It was cold calculation. Jordan needed Rodman's rebounding and defensive abilities, so he was willing to tolerate behavior that he privately found distasteful. One of the most unsettling truths that Rodman has revealed involves Jordan's disturbing prediction about his lifespan. Jordan once predicted that Rodman wouldn't live to 40 due to his lifestyle, a comment that reveals not just Jordan's judgment of his teammates' choices, but his apparent lack of empathy for someone clearly struggling with personal demons. When Rodman reflected on this prediction in later interviews, his response revealed both hurt and defiance. He said, "Michael Jordan said that? Wow." The fact that Jordan made such a callous prediction about a teammate's death speaks volumes about his character and his view of human relationships as expendable commodities in service of basketball success. This prediction becomes even more chilling when considered alongside Rodman's well-documented struggles with depression, alcoholism, and suicidal ideation. In 1993, Rodman sat in his car at the Palace of Auburn Hills with a loaded rifle, contemplating suicide. Rather than offering support or understanding for a teammate clearly in crisis, Jordan's response was to essentially write him off as doomed to an early death. The infamous Vegas incident that has been romanticized in The Last Dance documentary takes on a much darker tone when examined through Rodman's revelations. The story of Jordan flying to Vegas to retrieve Rodman from his extended vacation has been portrayed as an act of leadership and care. However, Rodman's accounts suggest something far more manipulative. The truth is that Jordan didn't rescue Rodman out of concern for his well-being. He did it because he needed Rodman's performance for the playoffs. This wasn't friendship, it was asset management. What makes Rodman's revelations even more shocking is his insight into Jordan's hidden contempt for those around him. Rodman has described how Jordan would hide his ugly side from the media and public, presenting a carefully crafted image while harboring deep disdain for teammates, coaches, and even fans. According to Rodman's observations, Jordan's hatred for answering questions about teammates wasn't just about media fatigue. It reflected his genuine belief that his teammates were inferior and unworthy of serious discussion. Jordan's statement in recent years that he has an ugly side that I don't show the public confirms what Rodman witnessed firsthand during their championship years. One of the most damaging myths that Rodman has helped expose is the idea that Jordan's harsh treatment of teammates was motivational. Former teammates like Scottie Pippen have suggested that the Bulls won championships despite Jordan's berating rather than because of it, and Rodman's experiences support this view. Rodman's ability to perform at an elite level, despite receiving virtually no emotional support from Jordan, suggests that his success came from internal motivation rather than Jordan's leadership. In fact, Rodman has indicated that Jordan's coldness and distance actually made their partnership more difficult, requiring him to find motivation elsewhere. The revelation that they really never at each other at all, but were so mad at each other because we couldn't perform that night, suggests that their success came despite their lack of communication, not because of Jordan's leadership style. Despite all these revelations about Jordan's character flaws, Rodman has remained steadfast in his defense of Jordan as the greatest player of all time. However, his defense often comes with subtle criticisms that reveal the complexity of his feelings about his former teammate.
I just think that if you look at Michael, the body work he's done over the years, you look at LeBron, the body work he's done over the years. How many years? 17 now, going to 18. Michael is the greatest player ever. You know, Michael's been injured one time. He never asked to sit out. He never asked for anything, but only he asked for respect and money.
Rodman's consistent argument that Jordan would average 50 points in today's NBA serves a dual purpose. While it defends Jordan's greatness, it also implicitly criticizes modern players and the league's evolution, suggesting that Jordan's era was tougher and more authentic. But perhaps more tellingly, when Rodman discusses Jordan's greatness, he focuses almost exclusively on individual achievements rather than team chemistry or leadership qualities. His praise centers on Jordan's work ethic, scoring ability, and competitive fire. Conspicuously absent are any mentions of Jordan as a teammate, friend, or mentor.
So Detroit made me a man, dude. Isaiah, Joe DeMorris, Chuck Daly, they made me a man, dude. I said, oh shit, I can't play this anymore. I can't follow people like this anymore. I got to go out there and try to, make something for myself and just try to, try to blend in.
Rodman's revelations about their era extend beyond just Jordan to paint a picture of 1990s basketball as fundamentally different from today's NBA. His descriptions of the physical and psychological brutality of that time period help explain both Jordan's methods and their effectiveness, while also highlighting their moral questionability. Rodman's accounts of the Jordan rules employed by the Detroit Pistons reveal a league where psychological warfare and physical intimidation were not just accepted, but celebrated. In this context, Jordan's harsh treatment of teammates wasn't an aberration. It was the logical extension of a win-at-all-cost mentality that defined the era. What emerges from Rodman's revelations is a picture of championship success built not on friendship or mutual respect, but on cold business calculation. Their all-business relationship worked because both men were willing to compartmentalize their personal feelings in service of basketball success. Jordan tolerated Rodman's eccentricities because he needed his rebounding and defense. Rodman tolerated Jordan's coldness because he needed the championship platform and the opportunity to showcase his unique talents. Neither man liked the other particularly, but both were professional enough to make it work. This transactional approach to teamwork challenges fundamental assumptions about what makes successful teams. The Jordan-Rodman partnership suggests that emotional connection and mutual respect, while valuable, may not be essential for achieving the highest levels of success, at least in the short term.
I fell asleep in the car and had a gun to my mouth, and I fell asleep to Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam and stuff like that. I think that actually saved me.
Yeah.
I fell asleep like that, and I think the whole city of Detroit was around my car, stuff like that. And they want to put me in a mental hospital. I said, I'm not mentally done, but I think a lot of people knew what I was going through.
Rodman's openness about his mental health struggles provides crucial context for understanding the toll that playing with Jordan took on him personally. While their partnership was successful from a basketball standpoint, Rodman's continued struggles with depression, alcoholism, and self-destructive behavior suggest that the emotional isolation he experienced may have contributed to his ongoing problems.
I just don't get it, Stephen. I just don't get it. I mean, the Generation X today, man, it's really have taken over the world pretty much, especially in the United States. And the kids today, they think they're perfect. They think they have to have certain things to live, or certain things the way they want to live life today. But when you're a kid, especially at 19, 20, 21, and you get a contract worth $160 million, boy. I think you add up like guys in the 80s, probably 100 guys, then you make $100 million combined.
Rodman's observations about modern NBA players earning vastly more money than his generation provides additional context for understanding the Jordan era. The financial desperation that many players of that time experienced may have contributed to their willingness to tolerate Jordan's harsh treatment. They simply couldn't afford to challenge someone whose approval was essential for championship success and financial security. Jordan's own relatively modest earnings during his early career, making only around $3 million during his first 8 or 9 years, may have contributed to his ruthless approach to teammates and competitors. What Rodman has revealed about the basic nature of their relationship, the emotional distance, the transactional approach, and Jordan's hidden contempt is just the beginning of a much darker story. The dark truths and explosive feuds exposed. The surface-level revelations about the Jordan-Rodman relationship were just the tip of an iceberg of darkness that both men carried throughout their careers. While their on-court partnership was undeniably successful, both Jordan and Rodman were magnets for controversy, each in their own distinct way. To begin with, Michael Jordan's image as the perfect competitor and global icon has always masked a more complex reality. Jordan himself once warned viewers of The Last Dance that they might see him as a horrible guy after viewing his unfiltered intensity. This self-awareness opened opened the door to a more honest examination of Jordan's methods and the cost of his relentless pursuit of excellence. Jordan's leadership style often crossed the line into what many considered psychological warfare against his own teammates. The most famous incident occurred in 1995, when Jordan punched Steve Kerr during practice, giving his teammate a black eye after a heated exchange. Jordan's treatment of other teammates was often ruthless. He would berate players like Scott Burrell constantly, using psychological pressure to either elevate their games or expose their weaknesses. Former teammates like Horace Grant felt alienated by Jordan's methods, leading to information leaks and internal team tensions. The most controversial aspect of Jordan's competitive drive was his apparent fabrication of slights to motivate himself. Stories emerged of Jordan creating imaginary disrespects or exaggerating minor comments to fuel his performance. This psychological manipulation extended beyond opponents to include teammates, refs, and even fans who he perceived as not showing proper respect. In addition to what some fans called his already problematic behavior, Jordan's gambling habits became a major source of controversy throughout his career. Unlike casual betting, Jordan's gambling was competitive and high stakes. Reports surfaced of him wagering enormous sums on golf matches, sometimes losing or winning six-figure amounts on single rounds. The situation reached crisis levels during the 1993 playoffs, when Jordan was spotted in Atlantic City just hours before a crucial playoff game. NBA Commissioner David Stern investigated the matter thoroughly, but found no evidence of Jordan betting on NBA games or compromising the integrity of the sport. The gambling controversy intersected tragically with Jordan's personal life when his father, James Jordan, was murdered in 1993. Conspiracy theories emerged suggesting the murder was connected to Jordan's gambling debts, though official investigations found no evidence supporting these claims. Daniel Green, one of the convicted killers, continues to maintain the murder was a random carjacking, though questions about the case persist. Perhaps most controversially, some theorists suggested Jordan's first retirement was actually a secret suspension related to his gambling. Commissioner Stern repeatedly and emphatically denied these claims, calling them nonsense. But the theories persist among certain segments of NBA fans. Jordan's political neutrality was yet another aspect of his life that drew significant criticism throughout his career, particularly his alleged comment that Republicans buy sneakers too, when declining to endorse Harvey Gantt against Jesse Helms in North Carolina's 1990 Senate race. This comment, whether real or apocryphal, became symbolic of athlete apathy toward social issues. Jordan's approach prioritized his brand and business interests over political activism, drawing criticism from athletes and activists who felt he had a responsibility to use his platform for social change. The criticism was particularly sharp given the era's racial tensions and Jordan's status as the most visible African-American athlete in the world. Critics like former teammate Craig Hodges accused Jordan of neglecting black issues and failing to use his influence for positive social change. Jordan's Nike partnership also faced scrutiny over labor practices in the 1990s. When pressed about sweatshop conditions in Asian factories, Jordan's response was defensive. He said, "Why should I speak out against Nike?" He then went on to promise factory visits that never materialized publicly, drawing accusations of moral cowardice from labor rights advocates. While Jordan's controversies often involved calculated decisions or behind-the-scenes behavior, Rodman's scandals played out in spectacular public fashion, creating a media circus that followed him throughout his career. His NBA tenure was marked by over 100 technical fouls and numerous suspensions for increasingly outrageous behavior. The most infamous incident occurred in 1997 when Rodman kicked cameraman Eugene Amos in the groin. The incident, which resulted in an 11-game suspension and a $200,000 settlement, exemplified Rodman's inability to control his impulses when frustrated. The year before, he had headbutted referee Ted Bernhardt, earning a 6-game suspension and a $20,000 fine. These on-court incidents were symptoms of deeper psychological issues stemming from his childhood trauma and ongoing struggles with identity. Rodman's battles with alcohol and depression were well documented, leading to multiple rehab stints and interventions throughout his career and beyond. Away from the court, Rodman's personal life became a tabloid sensation, with his romantic relationships often overshadowing his basketball achievements. His brief marriage to Carmen Electra lasted just 9 days, ending amid domestic battery charges that were later dropped. The marriage, conducted while both parties were intoxicated in Las Vegas, epitomized Rodman's impulsive decision-making. His affair with Madonna in 1994 also became legendary in NBA lore, with Rodman later claiming Madonna offered him $20 million to impregnate her. Whether true or not, these stories contributed to Rodman's mystique, while also highlighting his complicated relationship with fame and sexuality. But perhaps the most painful aspect of Rodman's personal controversies involves his family relationships. His ongoing estrangement from his children, particularly soccer star Trinity Rodman, has played out publicly. Trinity has described him as not a dad and criticized his absence during her rise to soccer stardom. When Dennis attempted to apologize in 2015, 2024, Trinity responded saying, "I'm done," highlighting the deep family rifts that money and fame couldn't heal. Beyond the serious personal struggles, Rodman became famous for incidents that seemed almost too bizarre to believe. His admission to breaking his penis 3 times in separate incidents became NBA legend, with detailed stories about the circumstances and medical consequences.
Yeah, I think that's something kind of legendary about me going, like in Houston. Matter of fact, I did it here in Houston.
Yeah.
At the W Hotel. It's like, oh man, those are the good old days, huh? Those are the good old days, like, God, Lord, when you miss, it's kind of, wow. Next thing you know, you going to a blood bank.
But having to make an unplanned trip to the blood bank wasn't the craziest part.
Wait. You played a game with a broken penis?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm saluting you right now.
No, seriously, ask people. Yeah, I did that night.
These incidents, while generating headlines and reinforcing his reputation for excess, also revealed Rodman's willingness to share even the most embarrassing aspects of his life. Yet another aspect of Rodman's life that criticized NBA norms in the 1990s was his cross-dressing and gender expression. His willingness to wear wedding dresses to book signings and experiment with traditionally feminine fashion was revolutionary for its time, though it also drew criticism from conservative fans and media members who couldn't understand his motivations. Rodman's visits to North Korea beginning in 2013 marked the beginning of yet another media storm. His friendship with dictator Kim Jong-un drew widespread condemnation, with critics arguing he was legitimizing a brutal regime responsible for widespread human rights abuses. The most controversial moment came in 2014 when Rodman suggested that detained American Kenneth Bae did something to deserve imprisonment. The comment drew immediate backlash, forcing Rodman to issue a public apology. His behavior during these trips often appeared erratic, leading to speculation about his mental state and substance abuse. Despite the criticism, Rodman has maintained that his relationship with Kim Jong-un represents an attempt at personal diplomacy. His camp reportedly lobbied for the release of Otto Warmbier in 2017, though Warmbier died shortly after his return to the United States. On his part, Michael Jordan's competitive nature created numerous long-lasting feuds that extended far beyond basketball. His rivalry with Isaiah Thomas stemmed from the 1985 All-Star game Freeze-Out and escalated through their brutal playoff battles. Jordan reportedly influenced Thomas's exclusion from the 1992 Dream Team, a slight that Thomas discovered only through The Last Dance documentary. The recent fallout with Scottie Pippen has been particularly painful for Bulls fans. Pippen felt undervalued in The Last Dance and has since criticized Jordan publicly, with the situation complicated by Jordan's son Marcus dating Pippen's ex-wife Larsa. This personal dimension has added layers of complexity to their professional disagreements. Jordan's feud with Jerry Krause, the Bulls GM, was legendary for its pettiness. Jordan mocked Krause's weight, calling him crumbs, and publicly undermined his authority at every opportunity. This power struggle ultimately contributed to the dynasty's end, with both men allowing personal animosity to override basketball considerations. His friendship with Charles Barkley ended over business criticisms. When Barkley criticized Jordan's Hornets ownership on television, saying he was surrounded by yes men, Jordan took it as a personal betrayal, leading to a decade-long silence between former friends. Away from his feud with Jordan, Rodman's feuds were often characterized by inflammatory comments that revealed his unfiltered perspective on basketball and society. His criticism of LeBron James has been particularly harsh, with Rodman comparing LeBron to a goddamn fucking dump truck next to Jordan's finesse. Rodman's $50,000 fine for insulting Mormons during a 1997 Jazz game was the largest fine in NBA history at the time. His comment about fucking Mormons in the stands violated the league's policies against hate speech, though Rodman later claimed he didn't understand the religious implications of his words. His ongoing criticism of modern NBA players reflects his belief that his era was tougher and more competitive. Rodman has claimed he could lock down current stars like LeBron James, assertions that generate debate about era comparisons and the evolution of basketball. What's fascinating about Jordan and Rodman's relationship is how they handle controversy differently while maintaining their partnership. Jordan's approach was typically calculated. He would create controversy when it served his competitive purposes, but avoided situations that might damage his brand. Rodman's approach was the opposite. He seemed to court controversy for its own sake, often without considering the consequences. His willingness to be authentic regardless of public opinion made him a cult figure, but also limited his mainstream appeal. The NBA's most destructive feuds, The Jordan-Rodman saga extends far beyond their personal relationship to expose a broader pattern of toxic dynamics that have plagued the NBA for decades. While Jordan and Rodman managed to maintain professional respect despite their emotional distance, the league is littered with partnerships and rivalries that devolved into bitter, career-damaging feuds. Jordan's approach to relationships, transactional, coldly calculated, and ruthlessly effective, became a template that influenced an entire generation of players. The success of his methods, as revealed through Rodman's accounts, created a culture where emotional manipulation and psychological warfare became normalized as leadership. The most direct descendant of Jordan's style can be seen in Kobe Bryant's approach to teammates. Like Jordan, Kobe was known for his demanding nature and willingness to publicly criticize teammates who didn't meet his standards. The difference, as Rodman has observed, is that modern players are less willing to accept this treatment. Where Rodman fell in line out of respect for Jordan's greatness, today's athletes have more power and alternative options, leading to more explosive public conflicts. The most instructive parallel to the Jordan-Rodman dynamic is the relationship between Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant during their Lakers tenure from 1996 to 2004. Like Jordan, Kobe attempted to use psychological pressure and public criticism to motivate his primary teammate. Unlike Rodman, Shaq refused to accept a subordinate role, leading to a power struggle that ultimately destroyed their partnership. The Shaq-Kobe feud reveals what happens when Jordan's methods encounter an ego equally large. While they won 3 championships together, 2000 to 2002, their relationship became increasingly toxic, with public arguments, media campaigns against each other, and ultimately, Shaq's trade to Miami. Rodman's perspective on this dynamic is revealing. He has praised both players individually, but criticized their inability to maintain the professional distance that made his partnership with Jordan successful. The relationship between LeBron James and Kyrie Irving during their Cleveland Cavaliers tenure, 2014 to 2017, is an example of a more complex evolution of the Jordan-Rodman dynamic. While they achieved the ultimate goal, bringing Cleveland its first NBA championship in 2016, their partnership couldn't survive the psychological pressures. Irving's desire to escape LeBron's shadow mirrors themes from Rodman's revelations about playing with Jordan. The difference is that Irving had the power to force his way out, requesting a trade in 2017 rather than accepting a secondary role as Rodman had with Jordan. This dynamic reflects modern players' unwillingness to sacrifice individual identity for team success, a shift that Rodman has criticized in his assessments of current NBA culture. His comments about modern players being money-driven rather than focused on legacy reflect his belief that today's athletes lack the willingness to endure psychological discomfort for championships. The breakdown between Kawhi Leonard and the San Antonio Spurs organization, 2017 to 2018, represents perhaps the most shocking example of how quickly successful partnerships can deteriorate. Leonard, who had been the perfect system player and Finals MVP in 2014, became alienated over injury management and his role within the organization. This feud resonates with Rodman's experiences because it reveals how organizational control and player autonomy can create irreconcilable conflicts. The Spurs' paternalistic approach, which had successfully managed difficult personalities like Rodman during his brief stint there, completely failed with Leonard. Rodman's perspective on organizational loyalty, shaped by his traumatic experience with Chuck Daly's departure from Detroit, provides insight into why these relationships fail. When trust breaks down between player and organization, no amount of success can repair the damage. The evolution of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook's relationship from close friends to bitter rivals illustrates another failure mode of NBA partnerships. Their Oklahoma City Thunder partnership, 2008 to 2016, was built on genuine friendship, unlike the professional distance that characterized Jordan and Rodman. When Durant left for Golden State in 2016, Westbrook took it as a personal betrayal, leading to years of passive-aggressive conflicts and public tension. This represents the opposite problem from Jordan's approach. When personal relationships become too invested in professional outcomes, the inevitable disappointments become deeply personal. Rodman's revelations about the benefits of maintaining emotional distance provide a framework for understanding why the Durant-Westbrook friendship couldn't survive professional separation. The internal tensions within the Golden State Warriors dynasty, particularly between Draymond Green and Kevin Durant, reveal how even the most successful teams can harbor destructive dynamics. Green's on-court argument with Durant in 2018, where he reportedly told Durant, "We don't need you," exposed underlying resentments that had been building throughout their championship run. This dynamic parallels themes from Rodman's accounts of Bulls chemistry. The difference is that Green's emotional outburst made private tensions public. violating the professional compartmentalization that had allowed the Jordan-Rodman partnership to function. The Warriors' inability to manage these conflicts ultimately contributed to Durant's departure and the end of their championship window, demonstrating how personality conflicts can derail even the most talented teams. Away from player-on-player feuds, Pat Riley's coaching and executive career has been marked by numerous conflicts with star players, from Magic Johnson to Shaquille O'Neal to Jimmy Butler. Riley's authoritarian approach, while successful, created an organizational culture that many players found oppressive. This connects to Jordan's organizational relationships, particularly his feud with Bulls GM Jerry Krause. Rodman's perspective on these power dynamics, shaped by his experiences with different coaches and organizations, reveals how institutional control can become psychologically damaging even when it produces wins. Riley's conflicts with players like Hassan Whiteside and Jimmy Butler show how his methods, like Jordan's, can achieve short-term success while creating long-term resentment. The pattern suggests that certain approaches to leadership may be fundamentally unsustainable in human terms, even when they produce championships. Carmelo Anthony's career trajectory illustrates what happens when individual talent conflicts with team-oriented success. His conflicts with coaches, teammates, and organizations throughout his career reflect the tension between personal achievement and collective goals. Anthony's struggles with accepting reduced roles parallel what might have happened if Rodman had refused to embrace his specific function within the Bulls system. The difference is that Rodman's psychological makeup, shaped by childhood trauma and a desperate need for father figures, made him more willing to accept subordination in exchange for belonging. Anthony's inability to find this balance resulted in a career of individual accolades without team success, illustrating the narrow path that players like Rodman successfully navigated. The advent of social media has fundamentally changed how NBA feuds develop and play out. Players can now air grievances directly to fans, creating public pressure that didn't exist during the Jordan-Rodman era. Recent examples like the Ben Simmons Philadelphia 76ers breakdown show how quickly private conflicts can become public spectacles. The level of scrutiny and instant communication makes the kind of compartmentalization that allowed Jordan and Rodman to function much more difficult. Rodman has expressed both regret and relief about missing the social media era. While he believes he could have monetized his authenticity more effectively, he also acknowledges that the constant public pressure might have made his already fragile mental state even more precarious. The common thread running through all these feuds is the psychological damage caused by high-pressure competitive environments. Players like Rodman, who entered the league with existing trauma, often found that the NBA's culture exacerbated rather than healed their emotional wounds. Modern players have begun speaking more openly about mental health challenges, from Kevin Love's anxiety to DeMar DeRozan's depression. This represents a significant shift from the Jordan era, when psychological struggles were seen as weakness rather than conditions requiring treatment. The question raised by these developments is whether the psychological methods that produced championship success in the past are compatible with modern understanding of mental health and human development. Rodman's revelation suggests that the costs may have always been too high, even when the results seem to justify them. The broader pattern revealed by examining NBA feuds alongside Rodman's insights about Jordan is that basketball culture has long celebrated and rewarded behaviors that many consider to be psychologically destructive. The killer instinct narrative that surrounds champions often masks patterns of emotional manipulation, psychological abuse, and relationship destruction. Contemporary discussions about player empowerment and mental health represent attempts to create healthier competitive environments. However, the tension between individual well-being and collective success remains unresolved. Rodman's revelations about Jordan serve as both a historical document and a warning about the costs of pursuing greatness through psychological manipulation and emotional isolation. The pattern of feuds and failed relationships throughout NBA history suggests that alternative approaches to success are not just preferable, but necessary for the long-term health of both individuals and the sport itself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.